Okay, so I am going to show 4 more application techniques. This first one I'm going to do is going to be semi slash like liquid demi going darker. So that's going to be using the bottle. So as always, I'm going to start with my barrier cream, protective cream, whatever you want to call it, all around the hairline but not into the hair. This is just to prevent staining on the hairline, irritation, help prevent anything from running into the eyes. Okay, so I'm going to be using gel in a color bottle or tint bottle to mock this. So we would use this with any type of liquid hair color that is semi or demi-permanent. Okay, so you're going to use the nozzle to part. So we can put this all the way from scalp to ends. However, we still use our 1/4 inch sections. So I'm going to start with outlining quadrants. I'm going to take the nozzle of my bottle, and that is what, her hair is really tangly, what I'm going to use to part through her hair. And then once again, I'm going to use those 1/4 inch sections. Okay. So I will apply my color at the scalp. I like to use my thumb to work it out. Okay, and then I lay it in my hand. All the way up and down. And then I personally use my pinky and my ring finger and then my whole left hand to work it through, making sure you don't leave any dry spots. All the way scalp to ends and the back of the hair. And you're going to gently lay it. So at the scalp. Use your nozzle to part. 1/4 inch sections. Scalp. Down here. Make sure you're working it in. Flip it over, back. Turn it over. The big thing is just making sure that you go through and make sure you've saturated each section. So scalp to ends. Shouldn't see any dry spots. Up and back, flip over. Okay, so that is your demi-permanent application. And I flip it back over and just check and make sure I don't have any dry spots. The next one I'm going to show, it would be permanent color going darker. And this is with brush and bowl. So we use brush and bowl with our gel colors, cream colors. Okay, so when we're going darker, we're going to use still our 1/4 inch sections, and we can apply it all the way to the scalp. So I'm going to outline my quadrants. And I'm going to go in, use the end of my comb, get my 1/4 inch sections. the strand and just leave out the very ends, last ½ inch to 1 inch of porous ends. Okay, because the reason we do that is when you're going darker, if the ends are really porous and dry and damaged, they will take the color darker and often ashier than the rest of the hair, and they take it a lot quicker. Okay, so we go from scalp, work it down to those porous ends. Same thing, I want to make sure I get front and back, lay it over gently. Put it in my hand, work it through. So when you do this in class, we want to see that you know to leave those porous ends out. Make sure that when you're working, anytime you're leaving the scalp or the ends out, make sure you're paying attention to how much you're leaving out. A lot of times we see, sometimes it's like the last 3 inches left out. Okay, it's just those very porous ends. So then, the last 10 to 15 minutes of your processing time, you would go back through and just run it all the way through the ends. And this will give you a more even color result than if you put it all the way through. That way those ends don't get too dark and too ashy. On a real client, if they didn't have porous ends or their hair was already short, you wouldn't have to worry about doing that, but we want to see that you know if the hair is really long or the ends are porous to do that. Okay, what was I doing in this one?
Virgin going lighter.
Virgin going lighter. Okay, so this is going lighter with color, not with lightener. So you use your 1/4 inch subsections. So it's just like the lightener going lighter, except with color we can take the 1/4 inch sections. So we still want to leave a little bit out at the scalp, a little bit out at porous ends, but we can take slightly bigger sections because it's color and it blends better. Okay, so ½ inch away from the scalp, down to just those porous ends. Don't leave half the strand out. Work it through, flip it over. From the scalp. And same thing, that's because the heat from the scalp will make it process faster. Okay, so you guys already watched how to do this, so you should have a pretty good idea. Like I said, your sections are just able to be a little bit bigger, but you still want to make sure you're working it through really well, following the curve of the head so that you're not getting farther away on the edges than you are in the center. Okay. So we would want to see that you know to leave out the scalp and the ends. You'd flip it back over, last 10-15 minutes of processing. You go back through. Also, when you go back through, you want to go back through in the order of the quadrants that you did. So if I started here and ended here, I would want to touch up in the same order. So I want to do my scalp and ends in the same order. Same thing, bring it back, don't smush it all together so that it processes evenly. Okay, and this last one is lightener retouch. So I'm sorry, color going lighter retouch. So it's color, not bleach. Okay, so this is basically just a regular retouch. The only time you would maybe do this differently is if they had a lot of regrowth. But 1/4 inch subsections. We leave this one away from the scalp a little bit, right?
If it's permanent, you can
if I was using like a high lift color, I would probably still leave a little bit of the scalp out, just to keep from getting hot roots.
And a lot of times it depends on how much regrowth they have too.
Right.
If they have 2 inches of regrowth, you might wanna leave a
Yeah,
little bit out.
exactly. If they only have like a half inch or an inch with color, you can go all the way to the scalp. If it's more than that, you're gonna do it kind of like how we did the lightener, where you would maybe do the last half of it, and then go back in at the scalp.
At state board for this one, you'll have to go all the way to the scalp, so you're just gonna assume there's just an inch.
Yep, so you're pretending to just have an inch of roots or regrowth. Okay, both sides. I actually forgot to outline my quadrants, but make sure you do that as well. You get any on their face, make sure you get that off.
The reason we outline the quadrant, a lot of times, it just gets missed. And a lot of people, that's where they have their most gray.
Yeah, especially
Most
most of the
resistant
gray comes around this temple area. So I actually, when I'm doing color, I do that first, before I do any other part, because it's using the most gray and the most stubborn. So it just lets it sit on there a little bit longer. And same thing, you would just flip it over, make sure it can get some air in there, don't smush it, and let it process through the manufacturer's processing time.
And then the last few minutes, then, you won't have to do this to show us, but to know on a client, you might wanna go through and refresh the ends on a color. You don't do that with lightener, but on color, it fades. You go in, put a little shampoo or conditioner in with your, color, and then just refresh the ends with the last 5 minutes.
Or you can use a Demi also to